But
No,
not,
you don't.
But not the camera.
I couldn't see it.
No. There you go.
It's not as bad as when it was on Metro TV.
It was better when it was on Metro because, yeah, but it was on Metro. I mean, it replayed once, and that was it. The funnier one is Linda Hamilton. She participated, it must have been 10, 12 years ago, in something through LCC, like child development. They couldn't get enough people to do it. And so I didn't see her, but I saw her husband, like, trying to feed the kids breakfast, and they weren't eating, and screwing around, and he's like, "Would you just sit down?" And they just looked at her. It's just like, he's like, "It's been one of the most embarrassing moments of my life." And they keep replaying it over and over again.
You got a lot going on.
Okay, so we're going to get started. We'll call this meeting to order at 5:34. Hi, everyone. How's it going? Great. Okay, so Carter, do you want to go over the agenda?
Sure. Tonight we are, well, first of all, let you know that James Manning will be late, Juan Carlos will be late, Linda will be late, and Mike Clark will not be people that I've heard from. We will get the chief's report. The chief is actually out of town, and Pam Collette will be here in his stead, giving the report. Finish the review of the bylaws, get brief updates on the game symposium and the social host ordinance, and committee updates, and that's it.
Great. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add or adjust on the agenda? No? Okay, hearing none, we'll just assume that the agenda is approved unanimously. So now minutes from September 13th. Any corrections?
I move that we accept done.
Okay.
Second. You need one more?
Well, unless anyone has a problem with it, minutes will be approved unanimously. Now public forum.
We have no public here to speak, so that concludes our public forum for today on here.
Something's off.
She's not really the public.
I'll turn the time back over to you.
Great, so comments from the chair and items from commissioners. I would just like to say thanks everyone for electing me for chair. Bear with me today. I will probably be awkward. And just in general, in the future, I'm going to try to smooth things out, and I appreciate feedback whenever you have it. So before agenda setting meetings, I'm going to be calling for agenda items and taking those items to the meetings with Carter and myself to try and get some more feedback from you all before we set the agenda. During the meeting, I'm going to run it as is. If you'd like to see something else done, please feel free to send me an email. That's all I have.
Clockwise or counterclockwise?
Oh, I get to choose. There you go.
Welcome to your first meeting. Hopefully I won't give you too hard a time. But I won't be the only one. So, other than that, I don't think I did have one question. I was starting to read the chief's briefs, and I did have a question. Where's the Huckleberry Patrol?
Those are our seniors on patrol.
Okay.
Yes.
I couldn't.
Good question.
I wasn't sure what that was. I only read the first couple pages.
For feeding removal.
Yeah.
Okay. I was trying to think if it was going. I was trying to think if it was going to the huckleberry bushes, cleaning. I didn't know what it was. Okay, now I know. Thank you.
I still do, yeah. We're down right now because the new building isn't ready downtown yet. And when the precinct is fixed down there, we'll be able to go back to it. But yeah, the name came from one of our recently departed members who passed away. George had a heart attack. But his idea was that the story of Tom Sawyer was that Huckleberry Finn got Tom to paint the whole fence for him when he was tricked him into it. So he liked the name, and he was a jovial kind of guy. So he picked that name and stuck with us.
That works. I'll never forget now.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
I guess there's sort of the issue that came up last month with the kids who got beat up by the hot dog vendor. And there has been no motion at all on that one, or at least the person who instigated that violence still has not been arrested or cited. I don't know if there's internal stuff going on, but from the outside it looks like nothing has happened. And so there is some concern within parts of the community that needs to be looked at and addressed. I guess for those of you who weren't there on Monday night or read the paper, the downtown public safety zone did get extended for another year, although it is dramatically revised and removes a lot of the crimes for which you could be excluded. So it's kind of middle ground, but it did get extended. Okay.
We had a CRB meeting on Tuesday of this week. I think I was doing the Citizens Police Academy last month when I started. I can't remember if I mentioned that, but I'm missing a whole bunch of them because of all these other meetings, but the ones I'm making are kind of interesting. I did a ride-along with a Sergeant Vingy, who is moving to IA, so I'm kind of excited about that because we'll be seeing him in the CRB meetings. We did 2 reviews this month, which was a little bit different than we normally do. One was a case of a 13-year-old that was cited for violating traffic control device, crossing against a red light, basically, which caused vehicles that had a green light to not be able to go, and how the officer handled it and what the issues were. She turned out to be a person of color, but the officer didn't get that impression any time until she heard her name, and then kind of thought, well, perhaps she is, but that didn't play into the officer's thought process and how she handled it, but it clearly was the family's perspective that it was racially motivated. And so it was a difficult case because there was supposed to be a lot of evidence that did not come forth. They didn't give us the videos, they didn't give us interviews, they didn't let us contact people. So we had a really difficult time, reconciling the idea that we want to be transparent, we want to be able to investigate things, but if the people that make the complaints don't bring us the things, we're kind of stuck. And we kind of talked about, what's the takeaway from this, and, we realized it's a much bigger issue than anything we could decide. The other case that we reviewed, we didn't really review. It was brought by the auditor because it was related to the Occupy movement when they did their May 1st demonstration, and the gist of it was there wasn't a complaint made, but some of the show of force that was used, there was a concern about it, but there wasn't an actual complaint, and there wasn't really a category to put it in. So Mark was bringing it to the CRB to say, is this something that you think should have somehow found a classification and been investigated more? It's not really a service complaint because we weren't really servicing anybody. So we had a good discussion about that the department learned from their mistakes in that, some communication breakdowns, and we felt good about it because when you can learn something without there having to be a complaint against somebody, I think that's a best case scenario because you want to know that they will learn without having to get called into the principal's office, sort of thing. We have a new chair. Steve McIntyre is the new chair, and that's about it.
All right.
Oh, and we have a new vice chair, and I may not be on the police commission much longer. Is that better? Okay, thanks.
Does that mean that's you?
Yeah,
Does that mean you can't serve on the police commission?
I could, but the way it's been put to me is I've done my time in meetings, and so and it has to be approved by the mayor, whoever gets appointed. So people are gonna think about it and try and make it to a meeting and see it. So it will probably transition in January. Is what we're thinking, which will probably be about the same time the new city councilors, I would guess, would come on as well. If there's a change in obviously at least one city councilor. Landry's not going to be. Okay. I didn't want to keep talking, but she made me.
I've never figured out exactly what opening comments and closing comments, what the difference should be, so I've always kept silent on a lot of them. One thing I was thinking, though, I was driving down 5th Avenue the other day, a pleasant sunny afternoon, and I saw 5 guys sitting on a park picnic table in Washington Jefferson Park. They looked homeless, and glanced over and it looked like they probably, might have had beers, I don't know, they probably didn't have them showing. And this kind of stood out to me because I deal with a lot of open containers in the Eugene Municipal Court, open container crimes and violations. And that what a pleasant, sunny, late afternoon to be having a drink in a nice grassy park with some of your friends. And I continued on down the road and I passed the Oregon Electric Station, Cornucopia, Steelhead, Lucky Noodle, and Belly Taqueria, all of which had people sitting out on the sidewalk having drinks in the sunny late afternoon with their friends. And I thought about people who are getting contacted because they're walking around with Snapples and with Red Bulls and asked to let somebody smell what's in their drink. And I thought about, this last summer I went to a string quartet concert in the park, and as soon as they started playing, wine bottles started breaking out from everywhere, and everyone was enjoying a nice concert in the park on a sunny afternoon with a glass of wine. And just thinking that maybe it's not that an open container is inherently so offensive, and we might find that it's the people who have the open containers that is offensive, and that's what citations are getting based on.
So I'm going to continue with my theme that I brought up at the PSRC meeting last week, which troubles me. I have a problem with the stereotyping anyway of anyone. A favorite expression of one of my granddaughters is, "You don't know me," and it's so true. And the thing is, I'd like to know what it is that identifies a homeless person. What is it that they look like? I hear people say that they look like a homeless person. I've heard that before. And I've heard them say, I mean, we wouldn't think about saying it looked like a black person, it looked like a Hispanic person, or, these days maybe even a LGBT person, it looked like, I mean, it's offensive. And I don't know that it's okay to characterize people by that. Say, to me, I'd like to know what the list is of what to look for a homeless person. I don't know. I knew, as I said in the meeting, I knew a man who was homeless. He slept in his truck till he finally found employment and a place to stay. And the man showered every day, looked clean, put on clean clothes, tried to go for employment. He was homeless. I wouldn't have known to meet him. I wouldn't have known. But there are other people who may have homes and are not clean and don't take a bath and don't take care of themselves. It doesn't necessarily mean they're homeless. So I really have a problem with that. And some people say, well, I know which ones are and which ones aren't. And I just don't know. I'm very, very guarded about using that terminology if I can help it. So, just a thought, just something to think about. Thank you.
Thank you. I had the opportunity to attend the public outreach meeting last week at the library, and I just wanted to say, for those of you that didn't make it there, that know one of our regular attendees, Deb Fresh, she came to our meeting and she apologized for some of her behavior in the past, and her past behavior when she said she was off of her medication. And it was really touching to me. I've been on the commission for, I think, 6 years now? 5.5, I get confused. But anyway, I've seen Deb on and off during that time, and she always, whether her behavior has been appropriate for a public meeting or not, she's always made comments that stopped and made you think. But I think it must have been tremendously hard for her to come into our meeting and make that public apology. And I just wanted to tell the rest of you that are here that it was very touching to have her come in and do that, and share with you that she did. I was sorry I missed Sergeant Fitzpatrick's retirement. I meant to come to it the other day and something came up at work, so I hope he has a great retirement. I'm sorry I missed that part. Thank you.
Great. So now we're going to go into a discussion on videotaping. So if you have a particular opinion on this topic, please speak up now.
Actually, before we move on, I was wondering if maybe I could respond to Bob's comments or question about what makes people homeless? Or
Are you going to keep it brief?
No? Okay. Okay, he doesn't want to hear, so I won't.
That wasn't my comment, but I'm just correcting you. I didn't say what makes people homeless. I said
Yeah.
why people say they
I'll
appear
keep
to
it, I'll keep it brief. Yeah, one of the big things is big backpacks. That seems to single them out pretty regularly. So,
Well, thank you for that addition.
big backpacks with a sleeping bag.
Okay.
Okay, so now on to videotaping. Last meeting it was brought up by Jesse that he was uncomfortable with the videotaping, so maybe Jesse, you want to take this discussion first?
Yeah, and thanks for putting this on the agenda. I didn't expect it until it came out, but I looked at the Attorney General's open meetings manual, and they're not required. Even our bylaws say that the minutes need to be kept in some manner, and they need to keep some minimal record of motions that get made, who was there, who voted what way, generally what the discussion was. The camera got introduced, it seems like it was about 6 months ago now, and I've been on the commission about a year. I'm not sure, but it seems like discussion kind of got hampered. You've got this camera staring in your face. You know that anything you say can be taken out of context, and it's not required. I'm thinking that courts don't generally have cameras in there, so that the decorum is maintained. We don't see, so that people don't have to perform for the camera. We don't have to give our political sound bites, but we can have a good, honest citizen discussion about what community values are and hash out this stuff. Interested public can come here and attend and see it all in context that cannot be recorded by the video camera, especially not in the clips that it can be turned into. So I just thought, we never really did talk about it. It was thrust upon us, and we decided whether we were going to use a video camera or they had the built-in cameras at the McNutt room. So I think it'd be great to hear what others think.
Chairman?
Well, Carter can correct me if I recall this incorrectly. It's my recollection that the discussion started at the police commission after we'd heard multiple times from members of the public who came to our meetings that they felt there would be a lot of value to having our meetings videotaped, because it was hard to tell from an audio recording what people's expressions were and what their context was and who was even speaking. On an audio recording, if they wanted to get the full context of the meeting, the minutes are meant to capture not word for word what's said, but just the gist of what's said. And so we'd heard, I believe, multiple times from the public, from different members of the public that had come to our meetings and spoke. And in particular, Councilor Ortiz was very adamant about that and had advocated for funding videotaping of all board and commission meetings at the city council level. There's something about the city manager's office in context with that Carter, I don't recall that Carter can explain.
So the conversation before, from the community and Councilor Ortiz's involvement predates me. So what you said is best I know. As a result of Councilor Ortiz and the community being concerned about transparency and being interested in having access to video recordings of the meetings, the city manager's office talked about the budget and decided that yes, all boards and commissions except the CRB needed to videotape their meetings, but no, they're not providing budget. So the discussion that the police commission had was, how are we going to do it? Not whether we're going to do it, because the option wasn't given to us whether we're going to do it. Now, there are commissions who struggle with not having the right equipment, or somebody's out one night and they miss occasionally. But after the conversation at the last commission meeting, I called to confirm, given the budget times, city manager's office, are you still suggesting that boards and commissions need to videotape their meetings? And they said, yes, we are now still suggesting, requiring that boards and commissions videotape their meetings. There are other things that we're required to do that we sometimes don't do, and if we wanted to pick a fight, we could.
Brenda?
You started, Carter, with suggest, then you said request, then you said require.
Yes, and I don't think that they can make us do anything, but I called them and said, do we still have to do this? And they said yes.
Okay. And when you say that there are other things that we are required to do that we don't do, like what kinds of things are those?
Some of the stuff in the bylaws that we're changing from the way that the city managers, boards and commission manuals suggest that we ought to be doing things.
Okay. And when you say that everybody, the city manager is requiring everybody to videotape except the CRB, do they give any explanation as to why the CRB doesn't have to?
Because they deal with confidential material.
But it's in an open public meeting, and we're discussing things, I guess I agree that I don't like the video camera, because the problem I see with video cameras is it's taking one angle, and you can't get the whole thing. I've gone to trainings where, the whole problem with, the police videos is, it's only taking one shot, and what's happening over here is not being, shown. You can't always hear very well. I mean, I haven't gone back to view any of these, so I have no idea what they look like, what they sound like. I just kind of go, our grandparents did fine without video cameras. I want to be my grandparents. I'm fine without a video camera. I would prefer it without a video camera.
Yeah, well, I'd like to start by saying what the city manager wants is what's commonly known in the parlance as an unfunded mandate. So we have a situation here where he's saying, yeah, do it, but we're not paying for it, and I think it's kind of, behind the curve. The other thing is, I really don't think they are as great as they're cracked up to be, because in the past, when we had the TV station, I forgot the name of the public station. Yeah, thank you. That did that. We had different angles. The cameras were placed throughout the room, and so you had the opportunity to see everybody. Right now, you've got one camera pointing in this direction. If I'm turned speaking to Jesse here, really, my back is to you. You don't know what my facial expression is. Plus, I'm down here at this end of the table. You can't hear from that microphone way over there.
We just bought
I know, you have the recorder,
We
but
just bought a new mic.
that has to, I see. So now we've spent money from the police budget on a mic for something we don't need. And this is just another point of what somebody else wants us to do. We're an independent commission appointed by council, and I think as long as we comply with the law, we're fine. We just don't need it. It's another thing to have to deal with, and another thing to mess up, somebody to claim we covered up by not having a tape turned on time or something like that. And I just hate to see it be another encumbrance on us, and I just don't think we need it, so I'd be voting against it.
I have myself and then Tamara. I don't have strong feelings either way. I just throw this out. The other day I couldn't make it to a city council work session, and I was able to go watch the video, and it was really helpful for me. I've done that a couple times with city council. So from accessibility point, it's kind of nice, especially if you constantly work or something. But I can appreciate and understand the opinions given about hampering discussion. So thank you for that. Tamara?
So I have a question, Carter. I can't remember who paid for the equipment. The department.
The department paid for our using Metro TV for 3 months while we talked about figuring out an option. The commission decided to not spend money on Metro TV, and instead we're using the public information existing camera, and we just purchased a mic that's intended to be used on flat surfaces, so, and it's fabulous.
So is the mic attached with the video recording or the audio recording? The video recording. Oh, okay. Because the video or the audio quality with the video wasn't as good as we hoped. Okay.
Because it was a directional mic.
Yeah, it's an interesting discussion for me, because I mean I don't know how many of you were on the commission when we had multiple times over months and months where the public came and advocated for that. So it's hard for me to say. I mean, I don't really care one way or the other. The camera doesn't bother me to be there. We had a city council who's also a member of the commission that was passionate about it and advocated for it. And we've also had members of the public that carries greater weight with me saying, I want to see this. And when the public can't be here and they want to get more about the meeting and they feel like they're not getting it from an audio recording, that carries, a lot of weight with me about why we should maybe continue doing it.
So at this point in time, I'm just going to encourage if people would like something to happen to make a motion on the topic. But other than that, I'm going to keep going to the speakers list. Bernadette?
Is there any way to figure out how much it's accessed, Carter? I mean, since it's on a city link, and I know that pages get, tabulated, do we know whether or not that's...
I believe I can tell. I don't know now, but I can find out and let you know.
That is it?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
No, I
Joe?
was thinking of something else.
Yeah, so I've been up looking at past city council links, and that's fairly incomplete. I've actually haven't seen video recordings on the website from the police commission. Are they actually there, or?
Yes.
They are, and, okay. So do you have some sense of how to get to that webpage?
Yes, it's in the archive. If you, in the left bar, one of the main pages is Police Commission Meeting Archives. And it lists all of the past meetings, and for commission meetings, you can either access minutes or video.
Okay.
And because of server storage, I think we're only going to save 3 or 4 months online at a time. The rest of it will be available, but they don't want me to store it all online.
Yeah. It's probably more an issue of downloading bandwidth than it is actual storage, but either way, yeah.
I think a lot of the comments, I think, may have happened even before I started. I've only been on for 2 or 3 years, or only a couple of years, actually. But I guess my feeling is if the public has requested something, I mean, there's very little that we seem to really help the public with, but if they've actually, when they've asked for things, it didn't seem like we're able to really respond a lot of times to what they've asked for. But if this is something that we can respond to the public with, and it's really no skin up our teeth, I guess, and Carter's well very familiar with setting it up, and if it helps the public understand what happened at the meetings, I guess I think I would be for it, keeping it.
Jesse?
I had not heard what Tamara said about the public ever bringing it up. I thought it came down from the city manager's some generic order. So I suppose I'm not going to make a motion at this time.
You said Jesse right here is Ms. Bex. I have that advantage. I'll trade sides with you.
I just close out with just an observation. I mean, we have 3 systems. We have minute taker, we have microphone on the tape, and then we have video. And even NASA doesn't have more than 2 redundant systems. I just think it's a waste. And I hate to see us strapped to it, but obviously the sentiment's not the same. Again, the feeling about the public speaking, I'm kind of intrepid about that, because I feel like it could be true that most of them want it, but I don't know that. I mean, if 1 or 2 people come and speak at a meeting, they don't necessarily represent the rest of Eugene, which probably doesn't even know where the site is, much less looking for the video. So I guess the people who care want to look at it, so I'm okay either way.
And I would just, if Carter is able to find numbers on this, I'd ask that we put it back on the agenda next month. Maybe we'll have more people here. And, if it's only getting 2 views a month, and 2 people around the table say, oh yeah, I went and looked at it last month, then we can kind of figure that the public, it was before my time that the public asked about it, and so it must have been Andrea's previous sitting as a police commissioner as opposed to this time. And so I guess I would just wait until we get more information, if that's possible.
Okay, so at the next meeting, we'll come back with numbers, and if someone would like to make a motion, then they will. Sound good?
Great.
Awesome. So next is the Chief's report.
Great. I introduced myself to all of you. I am sitting in for Chief Kearns, and I'll start with the first slide. The second slide.
The first slide.
The crime prevention unit worked really hard in the last few weeks, and they scoured the campus and surrounding apartment complexes to really give some instruction around the kind of property crime that can happen when you leave your items in your cars or you don't lock your doors and that sort of thing. Lisa Barong and her staff did an incredible job, and as you can see, they contacted over 1,400 apartments, 470 residences, and handed out a lot of flyers. So we found that to be a successful mission that Lisa Barong led. Also, Randy Ellis was recognized by Northwest Christian University. And do you have any further details about that, Lynn, at all, about how that occurred?
Yeah, I think a lot of it really was based on his familiarity in the neighborhood, his work down there, and his just years of work down there. And they do something for him, and they did. So it's kind of
very nice.
Surprise, yeah.
Yeah, that's excellent. Okay, and the next slide. These are our areas of concern from this week versus last week. And I first need to say that I'm not a data-led policing expert, but I'm happy to take down any questions you have. And I'll talk with the chief and talk with our crime analysis unit and get back with you. Last week, we concentrated on this area, which is essentially Broadway down past Hilliard and then Willamette Street on one side. And these maps are slightly different, but on the new activity, you can see we went well past Agate. This is a very meaningful set of maps for our patrol units particularly, because they can really see where the crime has occurred. And the good news is that the burglaries did go down by 2 in this particular targeted area this last week, or this week compared to last week. And vehicle break-ins went down also. And I talked with our crime analysis supervisor this afternoon, and he really does attribute that to the work of our patrol units out in the area.
Okay, just out of interest, what does UUV stand for?
UEV is theft of a vehicle, and UEMV is essentially a break-in.
Something of an unattended vehicle?
Yes, of a vehicle.
So in other words, the car was stolen?
Car was stolen,
Okay.
yes.
And what's UEMV?
That's a break-in to a vehicle.
Okay.
And theft, coupled with theft.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Good questions. Okay, this documents our officers' activity in the last weeks and where our areas of concern were. And you can again see the area that was documented in the previous slide, West 18th to 32nd, Willamette to Hilliard. And our other area of concern is what we call our Beat 5 area, and that's Barger to Roosevelt, Beltline to Highway 99. And Sergeant Barong, again, in an effort to educate our community, held a forum and really a public education meeting at Fairfield School in the last 2 weeks. And that was because we were having such a huge problem with vehicle break-ins, especially, but also burglaries. And we concentrated and deployed our resources, especially out in this Barger, Roosevelt, Beltline 99 area. And you can see the results. Some arrests, CLCs, citations. And are you aware what field interviews are? Great, yeah. So they contacted a number of people. And also in the other area as well. We're finding that the information we get from crime analysis is really invaluable every week so that we know what's happening and we can get a little more predictive than we have been in the past. Any questions at all about that?
And isn't there a new analyst? Or
Yes, we have a new analyst, Jeremy, is that correct? Yeah. And do you know where he came from or did
He was doing a data analysis for, it was Hyundai. And then when the city closed, he laid off. He went to the city of Springfield, I believe, in some capacity, somewhat similar capacity. But then our current crime analyst supervisor, Tim Shuck, had worked with him before, kind of recruited him to come back over and start helping us. So that's what really we need. We've been so busy just compiling data. We haven't had a chance to analyze it, and like the chief said before, be more predictive about where crime might be happening.
How long has he been?
He came on board, what, 3 weeks ago?
About 3, yeah, less than a month.
So he's still trying to
Yeah,
get up to
he's got a
speed a
lot
little
to
bit.
catch up.
Yes, and you've got someone out, too.
Yes, we do have Kristen Barrett, our other analyst, is out on family leave, so she'll be back until the end of the year. But we did do a career development position. One of our senior long-term dispatchers, Jenny Monnier, we posted a career development throughout the department, trying to see if there's another employee who could be interested in coming up to crime analysis to work on one specific project, but also learn the business, if you will, up there. And she really demonstrated some proficiency and aptitude for what we were looking at during the process. So Pam was able to cut her loose from the 911 center. You know, it's always a tight for staffing over there, but I think it's kind of exciting because she brings a different look from that dispatcher kind of ground level there, knowing what officers do and things that say, to, you know, how to manipulate that data. It'll be interesting to see how it works out.
Yeah, I think it's a really good fit for Jenny. She is known for digging as deep as she can into any kind of crime that she hears about, and she just really knows the system, so she'll be a good fit when Kristen is away.
Great.
Just out of interest, is there a picture book for the department? You know, who the officers are and, you know, pictures?
I wish there was too. No, there isn't currently. You mean something you might be able to access online or that kind of thing?
Either way, or a printed version. I just wondered if it existed.
No, we just recently had a really nice department photograph taken in front of the building.
Yeah.
But, of course, not everybody was there because it's shift work.
Unless you know it's me, you don't know.
Yeah, you need a, yeah, we're all very small in that picture. But that is a good idea. I'll take that to the chief. Okay, so any other questions on this one? If not, let's move ahead. I'll give you a couple of seconds to just kind of take a look at this. Is this a view you've seen before? This is this week, okay. This is the crime this week citywide. And the categories are showing that we are down. It's not significant. So any questions with that? Okay.
That's a different picture.
Yeah. This is 4 weeks. And as you know, the larger icons are the more recent crime. The smaller icons depict crime that was further back in the 4-week period. And we're down about 8% on the break-ins to vehicles. We are down 16% in thefts of vehicles. And we're up about 5% in the other two categories.
What's the difference between Berg 1 and Berg 2?
Berg 1s are residences, and Berg 2s are generally businesses.
Okay. And a car clout is what?
That's a great question. Yes, it's a break into a vehicle or a UE. Yeah, we don't call them that in communications, but it is the yeah, it's a theft from a vehicle.
Okay.
Okay. This is the really great information, I think, that we get from crime analysis now. This is the predictive piece of it, the recommended areas that we focus on, and we see that it's 5th to 11th, Polk to Jefferson. And we've had a couple of burglaries there. That's one reason we want to focus on it. They were close together. And Tim Shuck said that was the main reason we're going for this area.
Are those burglaries homes or apartments or?
2 were burglary 2, so they were businesses, most likely. And the burglary 1 is a residence.
Okay, so if it's like an apartment complex, that counts as a business or?
Sorry, that's a burglary 1, so
Okay.
yeah, residence, considered a residence.
But do you know if those particular ones, you probably don't know if the one, because I know a lot of this area has like hotels and motels in this area. Do you know if those were actually
I don't, but I can
residences or?
find that out very easily if you'd like to know.
I don't think motels, those are either residences or
Those are
apartments.
residents, yeah.
I mean, they might be apartments, but
Yeah. Do you want me
Well,
to check?
I was looking at the, no, that's okay.
Oh, 2
I was
ones.
looking at the one on 6th that was, that's
As a business.
Yeah.
But the two blue
Yeah.
ones.
So the burglary
Two
one.
residents.
Yeah, residents, and then the two red ones are most likely businesses. They could be an unattached storage shed, for instance, and be considered a burglary too. But because they want to focus, I'm betting they're businesses. The next shot is just something new that the crime analysis team is working on. They don't think they're going to go with this view, really. They were experimenting, but they wanted you to see it. It's really, they're thinking that stacked graphs would be a better way to look at this. You're looking at the frequency on the left side and the days of the week of the crime on the bottom. And it's showing that burglary ones, it looks like, happen mostly on Mondays, on Thursdays, and they spike for the weekend on Saturdays. So it's a great day.
Yeah, but that's,
Is it?
yeah, but that's not really significant numbers.
It's not.
It's a small trend.
Right.
Just from point of view, I kind of like this. I mean,
Oh,
that for me is easy, it's really easy to read. I think it's easier to read than
Then the bars.
the bars.
Yeah, I think so too. I like lines.
oh, good feedback. Thank you.
If we were the ones to be looking at them all the time.
So just,
I'll take that back to crime analysis, though. Okay. Looking ahead in a department update, as you mentioned, that we've had a couple of retirements, and Sergeant Fitzpatrick was one. Lynn Reeves is going after 31 years. We're going to miss Lynn a great deal. And Christy Wild, who Lynn and I have worked with for years, very, very closely. She's our program manager in 911, is also retiring after 31 years. So it's exciting for them. It's tough for us. Lieutenant assignments. For the next 6 months, Lieutenant Bills is our acting captain on the west side. And Lieutenant Hamcar is actually working very closely right now with Lynn Reeves to replace her. Is that a 6-month assignment or a year? For 6 months. It's a great opportunity for our lieutenants to get that higher level, training and opportunity. So that's very exciting. Chief Kearns is going to be attending a restorative justice presentation, and I do have just a one-page flyer on that if you're interested in knowing more about it.
yeah.
Okay, and I can scan that and email it to you.
I've got an email.
You want to do that? Fabulous, okay.
What is restorative justice, just for the heck of it?
Well, good question. It's focusing on the problems and issues around lack of budget, lack of funding in public safety, and they want to find alternatives to putting people in jail and using money for that, and trying to find just many different alternatives.
That'd be valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds very interesting.
And in the world of discussions with the social host ordinance, there have been conversations about restorative justice with college students to have them involved with and engaged with the families who they're impacting by having a party. So there's also getting involved with the victims and trying to restore things back to normal, and that it seems to have, there's some best practice thinking that is more rehabilitative than anything punitive, to have people engaged in restoring things back to the way they should be.
It's a big thing in juvenile courts where they try to bring families together, the offenders and the kids in the schools, and kind of restore it. I mean, just put everything back to the best place. So I'm not sure where police fall into it, because it's usually more of a court-related sort of thing. But that's kind of what it is.
Should be interesting. Any questions?
Oh, so I don't listen to NPR. Oh, sorry. Was I out of turn? Okay, so I don't listen to NPR very often, but I happened to be driving and it was on the radio. And it was police officers calling in saying that they are sending grant money back to the feds because they're finding community policing is not being supported in times of budget crunches. And I'm just wondering, I'm assuming community policing is still kind of the perspective of Eugene Police Department.
It is, it's definitely a focus that we haven't lost,
Okay,
definitely.
so we're not sending any grant money back? We probably don't have any grant money.
Little grant dollars we have, we're hanging on.
Well, maybe there'll be more, because it was like they were talking about all these agencies that were sending it back.
Because their agency wasn't,
I kind of got the feeling from what I was hearing that it was budget crises were causing them to kind of change their focus away from community policing, and so they couldn't put the time into community policing, so they were sending money back. But the officers were calling in saying, you know, in times of budget crisis, you need community policing even more, which is getting the community involved, being the eyes and ears for us, because we don't have as many people out there. So I just, it surprised me that, you know, agencies were doing that, so I just didn't know.
This says Lieutenant Bills is acting in charge captain in West Police Operations. Who's the East Police Operations?
That's our new captain, Captain Dur, yes. That's the name there. Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to take a minute to commend the community service officers and Sergeant Barong, who apparently has limitless energy and continually goes out in these neighborhoods and leaflets these people. It's unbelievable the results that we get from this, and I'm just, I'd like to commend the whole program. They've done an excellent job.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, great. So now we're on to the bylaws discussion.
Okay.
We almost got that.
Where is everybody?
Good thing I came to this and my police academy, I always wondered how to.
Should we? Yeah.
Okay, so, in your packet is the bylaws, and Carter has updated our version that we have to reflect the changes that were captured in our last meeting.
Thank you, Carter.
My intent. So if we want to briefly review the changes that got made, the first one is on the second page. Number item 2 and item 3 on the second page. Were both updates that were accepted by the police commission, voted for in our last meeting. Does anybody have any questions or concerns with the way that those are stated in these bylaws? Bob?
On the second line, where it says these bylaws will control unless the commission approves a change to align with the board and commission manual. You know, I know they mean police commission. It's the commission's happy with leaving it without putting the word police commission. I wouldn't want any confusion as to who controls, approves the change, and so forth. To read, in other words, unless the police commission approves the change to align with the boards and commission's manual.
On the first page, right here under Article 1, Establishment, it says the Eugene Police Commission here and after referred to as the commission.
Okay, thank you.
Does that clarify for you?
Thank you very much. That's fine.
Just hoping, what I was hoping to see when I turned back the page. Okay, so any other questions or concerns with those?
Would supersede be a better word than control?
I'll leave it.
Okay, we'll leave it.
But if you want to talk about it, we can.
Not necessary.
On the second one, did we say maintain a mission statement
Yes,
as opposed to just a mission? I mean,
yes, that's right. We had that discussion.
so maintain a mission statement and I mean, otherwise I think it's right. I just think we need to put the word statement in there.
Yep.
When Carter sits down, we'll tell her that.
I can't even hear you.
Oh, I mean, I think we just need to put the word statement in there, if I'm remembering correctly. And so we just need to tell Carter to.
And that's actually in Carter's minutes. It says mission statement in the minutes for that.
Right.
So that's
Anyway,
a correction, so we need to have it say a mission statement.
Yes.
Okay?
That one.
Should we add?
You can't check the cut out.
Yes.
Okay, so if there's nothing else on that, then on the next page, there was a reference under 7B, or the change under 7B, to violating Article 6, Section 6, which outlines that already instead of restating it. Any problems with that? Okay, Article 4. Item 2, the chair and vice chair shall serve for 1 year. And then under 3, we changed it to the chair cannot be elected for more than 3 successive terms. And then under Article 4, we declined a suggested change to that section. Any problems or questions on any of those?
Just one. Let's say that for some reason we need to change leadership. We could certainly at any time just do that. Is that correct? That's what I figured. Okay. So there's nothing in here that prohibits that.
Nope.
You ready to get rid of Caitlin already?
Not quite, but I'm working up to it.
I think he was thinking Tampa.
And the reason that that's the case is because the last paragraph of the bylaws says that the commission, with a majority of the commission, can change anything in these bylaws. So with that paragraph, a majority can change anything in here.
Okay.
So I'm sorry.
No, that's
Everything up till now was okay?
No.
Oh, no, correct. So just tell me what that is, since I need to take minutes.
On the second page under item 3, sorry.
He's going to mission statement.
We don't have the word mission statement. We just need to add a statement. It was in your minutes, but not counted in the change. Okay, next page, Article 6. Under item 1, there was a change that changed it from annual reporting yearly work plan to a work plan and report of previous work in the event that we end up going to a 2-year.
I think that's where I had the question.
That one?
Wasn't, I had in my notes anyway, that it said the commission shall submit a work plan and annual report. But I had that in my notes now. I know that's not what that showed up here, but because I thought we were doing this. I thought the idea was that we still went before the commission, the council, annually to let them know the status, but we didn't have to do an annual work plan, but we had to let them know the status every year.
Jesse?
That was in my notes too.
Bob?
I wasn't.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I wasn't sure if I'd put that in on my own, but
I have the same thing, so.
There is that.
I think, so, under Article 6, Item 1, it's supposed to read, work plan and annual report of previous years.
I thought the reason we took out the word annual, though, was because we wanted to leave open the ability to do it, that it wouldn't have to be done every year. And so I thought I knew we were doing a report every year, but I thought we weren't calling it an annual report because we were saying we didn't want to get confused with the idea that we have to do an annual work plan. And so we were trying to come up with how we were going to word it in such a way that we would report every year, but not necessarily do a work plan every year. That's how I
understood what Jesse and the others were saying, that we wanted to get away from, Councilor Ortiz actually suggested you don't need to do a work plan every year. You can do a 2-year one or every 2 years or whatever. So, but we would make the annual report to say what our progress was, and that's the way I remember it.
Right, no, and I'm saying the same thing, that we would do a report every year, but I thought we didn't call it an annual report because if they said we didn't have to report, that we would always, I just remember taking out the word annual, but, that we would continue to report to them every year.
Jim?
I think we took the annual out because I think we had annual in front of work plan and report, and we just moved the annual just so we just away from the work plan, so it didn't indicate we had to do an annual plan, we just had to do the annual report. So we moved it back, so it's just in front of report instead of in front of...
Right. And at the present time, the city council is requiring an annual work plan from us, an annual report from us, but
And
they
so-
suggested we might want to go to a biannual work plan.
Right, and what is it going to read then?
A work plan and annual report?
Yes.
And so take out the report of previous work.
No. It'll read, the commission shall submit
A work
a
plan.
work plan and annual report of previous work in writing to the city council.
Oh, okay,
Now, there is the next,
Does that make sense?
that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
that seems to work. But in the next sentence, we have the yearly work plan, so maybe the word yearly needs to be removed.
Oh, yes, good catch, great catch, yeah, you're right.
Does anybody disagree with that?
Nope.
Okay, and then, anything else on that paragraph? If not, then under Article 7, Item 1, we took out the word properly.
Yeah.
Properly. Okay. And then on the next page, Item 5, all members of the commission shall be involved in commission meetings. Item 6, we said any member who misses 3 consecutive regular commission meetings or misses more than 4 meetings in a 12-month period was the addition there. Any questions, comments, or concerns on that? Under Article 8, Section 2. You do the new stuff. Oh, okay.
Can I ask a procedural question?
Sure.
What do people anticipate how that happens? Does that just happen? Does it happen by a vote? I mean, there's nothing procedural back on this one about people missing. It says that, I mean, procedurally how, I mean, is this left to the chair to take care of? Is it a vote of the commission members?
I mean, removed by city council. If you read
But how does it, right, no, but how does it get to city council?
Recommendation.
It says, recommendation of the commission.
And is that somebody has to bring it up? Is it automatically get, I mean, so it's only based on a motion if somebody chooses to make it? Or is it, I mean, I guess that's my concern with this, is I kept reading it just kind of going, it doesn't, to me, it's not hard and fast as to how it's going to happen. And that's what I kind of don't like about it. I mean, I like the idea behind it. I mean, I think it's a good thing to have there, but I just don't, I don't see the trigger to get something happening in a consistent way.
It's not stated here.
And that's where I see the problem.
I guess I see it differently. If you wanted a trigger, you have it. This is like your backup for making a motion. But if not, if council was looking to remove someone, they could use this on their own and take action without prompting.
Without us doing anything. Okay.
Paul?
A recommendation from the commission implies that we would discuss it and amply cover whatever the issue is until the point we make a recommendation. So I think that's all you need. You don't need to micro-word it till a point where you've got a point on it.
Does that answer your question, Linda?
No.
Do I understand what people are saying? Yes. Does it alleviate my concerns with it not being consistently enforced across the board? No.
Okay. Do you have a motion?
Nobody else seems to have a problem with the wording, so I'm not sure that forming something to come up with is necessary. So.
Jesse, were you in there too? All right. So under Article 7, Item 2, staff, we added that from the boards and commissions manual states staff's main responsibilities are to assist the commission in its function and to represent the city of Eugene. Other possible responsibilities are outlined in the boards and commissions manual. Any questions on that one? And then under Item 3, any material related to the upcoming meeting agenda will be distributed in the meeting packet. And that's where we ended in our last meeting. So if there's no other questions, concerns, comments on those items, then we can move on to the new stuff we didn't get to last week. Okay, hearing none. And we'll move on to Item 5 under that same article, which says, official city stationery may only be used for official communications authorized by the commission.
Is the underline on E above not any change? Is that underline there for?
That was just numbering.
Okay.
I have a question. Would that mean that the chair could not, say, use the police commission letterhead to write a letter to us or to someone else? Or what, the commission would have to vote on it before you could actually send a memo out with the police
Yes,
commission?
that's right. Yeah.
I think
And we've
that's
had problems
unnecessary.
in the past where we had a chair that wanted to send something out like personally on stationery, and It has to be authorized by the commission.
I have a point on that. I think that the bylaws provide that the chairman is the spokesperson for the commission. Am I correct on that? I remember that reading in the bylaws somewhere. So if he's going to be the he or she, is going to be the spokesperson on the commission, then they are going, or should be allowed to make their statement, whatever the spokesperson's statement is, on city stationery. Otherwise, it looks like they're writing it on a blank sheet of paper, and I just think it's kind of, maybe we need to change the wording to allow the chairman to make official communications on the stationery when he's holding a position. I understand about personal communications or endorsing someone for city council or something like that. We need to think about that before, but certainly the commission can deal with that on a case-by-case basis, which I hope wouldn't happen very often. It seems to me that's kind of a knee-jerk reaction to something that happened in the past here at one time. And maybe you can cite other times. I don't know. I'm willing to hear.
Caitlin, were you in the queue?
Carter, I had you on.
Yeah, Carter, Caitlin, Bernadette, and myself.
I was just going to suggest that the chair an option would be to say that the chair can use the letterhead when they are relaying adopted commission policy. The challenge is if the chair wants to take a position on, say, the social host ordinance, if they're not smart enough, if they don't think to check, they might, with permission to use letterhead, might get far enough out ahead of the commission, because they are the official spokesman of the commission, that you might want to make sure it's clear under what circumstances they can use the letterhead.
Okay.
I think that's the intent, is that this group...
I'm happy with that.
So it's somehow...
I'm not sure this line does it.
Talking about adopted policy of the commission. Hypothetically.
Okay, I'm going to try and word it. Official city stationery may only be used for official communications regarding police commission business. How do we do that? Do we get a better suggestion?
I don't know. I think the wording as it stands is adequate.
Okay. The problem is authorized by commission. Because if, like Tamara and I write a letter to someone,
How about official communications for activities authorized by the commission?
yeah,
Because it's the work of the commission that you want to be authorized by, not the letter itself.
yeah.
But if the commission has already taken a position on something, you ought to be able to write a letter on letterhead that relays that authorized commission position.
I have Bernadette, myself, and then Jesse. Okay.
So, if I'm correct, what you're looking for is the issue of what to do between meetings.
Oh, hang on just a second. I have Bernadette,
Oh, sorry.
myself, Jesse in the queue, and then,
Oh, okay.
sorry.
I like this wording. I think it's the kind of ounce of prevention sort of thing. It's like, it's pretty minimal. In this day and age with email and smartphones, it's like if a letter was really a time necessity that needed to go out within 24 hours, the bylaws allow you to call an emergency meeting. You could easily send out an email letting people know, I really think this is important that we need to send this out, immediately. I can't imagine anything that our commission does that we would really have to do something that could not be covered with an email to the board and an okay, from enough people to be able to do something that would really be time sensitive. So I like this wording. I like that it's very concise. It's just don't do it unless you let us know you're about to do something.
Okay, and myself. So my problem with, while the chair is the spokesperson of the commission, and I've been in that position myself, my problem with them being able to unilaterally use letterhead is that it gives the color of authority of the full commission behind it. And that is not necessarily going to be the case, which I think is much different than somebody talking to the media and saying, I'm, as the chair of the police commission, something. I think when you send it out on letterhead, it gives the weight of the full commission behind it, which would be, in my opinion, desirable rather than someone that's the chair unilaterally sending something out on behalf of the commission that the commission hasn't seen or voted on or discussed necessarily. Jesse?
Did you, Tamara, ever use letterhead of the police commission? And then, second question is, would it be used for something like, dear person, we're pulling together a hate crimes task force and those kind of communications?
I only recall using it once when I was the chair, and that was to send a letter to the University of Oregon DPS about their uniforms. They had uniforms that were very similar to the police, EPD's uniforms, and there was a policy, or no, it's an ordinance, that said that security companies couldn't have uniforms that looked like EPD uniforms. And so the commission had discussed that and decided to send a letter to the university. So a letter went out under my name from the commission to the University of Oregon DPS. That's the only time I recall that happening when I was the chair. There's been a couple other recent letters that have gone out. I can't remember, what was the one Carlos sent out?
We sent something out to the community about inviting folks to participate in the hate crimes conference.
Oh, okay.
I think that's the only...
But anyway, it's not very often that it's been used, and typically if we're sending out, are we sending that out to the public? Usually that's done through like media, if we're sending out an invitation. But, okay, Joe, sorry.
Okay, so yeah, I guess this is about time-sensitive stuff. The issue of the time-sensitive thing came up at the outreach meeting, where we were talking, and we'll talk about this when it gets to the committee meeting discussion, or the committee discussion. But it was that we couldn't do that because of the Oregon public, the law. Is it, is this different? Do you remember that?
You can't take a poll by email. You can't vote by email.
Okay, but you could approve something by email.
No. What
So-
she's suggesting is not legal.
Okay, so in other words, the email thing that we've just been talking about doesn't fly.
I was saying for an emergency meeting. You could call an emergency meeting.
Oh, that's what you meant.
But we could not agree to allow it between meetings.
Correct.
Okay, just wanted that clarification.
I feel like there's got to be a way to word this differently. I guess I feel like this is driven by fear, but I haven't been here long enough. I don't understand. I think if it's given for official activities, I think you're going to know pretty quick if someone's abusing that, right? So I guess I would prefer if it was. The only time I get concerned is like, okay, let's say you do need like to write a letter. I'm not going to call an emergency meeting or write a letter. That seems weird and unnecessary. So that's my opinion on it, I guess. I'm sure. Bob?
Here's what I'm thinking, we take the break in August, and you can have a scenario where you've just had a meeting and something comes up and it needs to be addressed, and now you've got to wait till September to actually make that motion to allow the chairperson to write a letter on stationery. And the other side of that is, I'm thinking, if I'm the chairman and I sit down and I write a letter to the newspaper and sign it, Bob Walker, chairman of the commission, and it's not on letterhead, what difference does it make? I'm still the chairman, and I'm still speaking for the commission, and I'm saying something that maybe you all don't agree with, and won't you take me to task at the next meeting and say, Bob, you shouldn't have said that. And in fact, if it's egregious enough, I would hope you'd vote me out as chairman and let the next person take over. That would have more sense. But my point being, I don't see us hamstringing the chairman, and I can't think of every possible situation. I just think that if there could be a situation where the need for official stationery is necessary to get the word out in the community that we're having a meeting, say, to all the community organizations in September, but we don't have a meeting through August, so we can't really vote on that. Now we're hampered, and we can't get the word out to people. And I have a problem with because of one issue, going back and hamstringing everybody from now on in bylaws. That's not the place to do it. The place to do it would be in this commission meeting and vote the person out if you don't like what they said. Thank you.
Thanks. I have myself and Jim in the queue, Carter. And I can't think of a scenario where we've used official stationery when it wasn't something that the commission had discussed in advance. it's not used to let people know about meetings, it's used when the weight of the commission wants to be, behind something. So I can't think of any scenario where I can think of where it's been used my time on commission, where something was sent on letterhead that had not been discussed at the commission previously. That's the weight of when we use the letter versus media, or, a letter to the editor, or talking to the media. So that's my recollection. Jim?
Two things. Once you did send a letter with a letterhead, by then it's too late. So that'd be pretty hard to retract something once it's been sent out on our stationery. The other point is, I know in my job, there are, when I'm dealing with vendors and organizations that I'm doing business with, there are many situations where they require that the response be made on official letterhead. They're not going to take an email that says it's okay. They're not going to take just a simple letter. They want that response on our official letterhead because it carries the weight of the organization behind it. So I think that this is worded accurately. That if you're going to send an official communication that's representing the words of the full commission, that it needs to have commission approval. And I think that getting us together for an emergency meeting, which is certainly within our rights to be able to do that, I think that should be necessary.
I have Carter, Joe, and then Jesse.
Just point of clarification, while there may have been instances in this body's history where this section would be useful, this came from the board and commission manual, so it's an issue beyond just this commission, and it was recommended by the city manager's office.
Joe?
Yeah, I've only been here a little while, but I'm getting the impression that things grind very, very slowly. So I'm not sure that there is a time-sensitive, or at least that I can come up with a time-sensitive thing that the board would not want to discuss before it wrote a letter. So I don't know that there's an issue that's necessary to change this.
Jesse?
I wonder if it actually allows for some of the stuff we've talked about, if official communications are authorized by the commission by virtue of what we did at the last meeting. We do authorize the chair of a committee or the commission to send out letters asking for people to join the task force, or things that we already said we're going to do.
Good point.
So, yes, Bernadette?
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm thinking. It's like, if we've done it in a meeting, to me, that's authorized, and you can write the letter. It's, I don't think you have to come and say, okay, so I want to get authorization to write a letter that I've amended the bylaws to, I don't think that's what this is saying. And I guess, where is that stationery housed?
On my computer.
Yeah, so I think it might be kind of hard for somebody to write an unauthorized letter. I would think, if something happened that, the chair or the vice chair came to Carter and said, here's this letter, I need it on letterhead. I'm trusting that she, as a backup for us, would also be saying, I don't remember this in the minutes, and queuing something, are you sure you want to send this out? It's not in the minutes, or whoever comes after Carter. So I just think, if this is what the boards and commissions manual says, let's just keep it consistent across the board with the other boards and commissions, and just wish you told us that 10 minutes ago.
I'm sorry.
We wasted our lives on this. Moving right along.
Okay,
So do we have to move to accept that one, or only if we had changed it, we were making motions? I can't remember what we were doing.
If we can have a motion if people want, or if nobody disagrees with including this, then we don't need a motion. So we can just accept it as proposed.
Correct.
Is there anybody that disagrees with including it as worded? No. Okay. By acclamation.
Yeah, we swayed Bob.
Carter, do any of these other ones you want to tell us just come straight out of the boards and commissions
All
manual?
of them come from the board and commission manual unless they've got, no, all of them come right from the board and commission manual.
So we've got 3 left.
Okay, next page, item 3. There is a suggested change saying that vacant positions on a committee shall be filled by appointment of a person appointed by the, shall be filled by the appointment of a person appointed by the chair, subject to the approval of the commission. Is that, actually, would we forget to take something out, or is that worded awkwardly?
We can make it not
Filled
awkward.
by
Yeah.
A person appointed by the chair.
a person appointed by the chair.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that we just say subject to approval of the commission, because whether they're appointed by the chair or there's a motion from the commission, it's the same result. So just pull out the phrase appointment of a person appointed by the chair, or just vacant positions on the committee shall be filled by or filled subject to the approval of the commission. Just pull all the rest of that stuff out of there.
Any other, does anybody like that, not like that, have a comment on that? I would
It makes the
support that.
second sentence kind of a moot point, but that's...
Yeah, it does.
It's all right.
Well, are you suggesting we take the second sentence out then, Joe?
Oh, but I think that's how it gets to the
Yeah, I think it's how it
chair,
gets
is
to
to
the
know who
approved, but I mean, you're
to...
being redundant by saying the same thing twice,
Yeah.
so you could just leave everything out and leave that sentence as the main governing part of it.
I think that covers it. I agree.
Can you reread what it is you...
Okay, so I would scratch out pretty much the whole second sentence. Let's take a look at the third sentence real quick.
Sentence or line?
Sentence in this one.
So how would it read, Joe?
Okay, first one would read, vacant positions on the committee shall be filled subject to the approval of the commission. And then the third sentence, a position shall be considered vacant under the same conditions and set forth for a vacancy on the commission. I think that covers it. So moved.
Any, second, okay. Any objections to that motion? Discussion on the motion? If not, okay. All those in favor of Joe's proposed language, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. Carries. Did you call that to
Kendall moved, Walker seconded.
Okay. Okay, good. Under item 4, there was a change suggested that instead of officers of each committee being chair and vice chair elected by the committee, the chair, we changed it to say, or the proposed changes, the chair of each committee is appointed by the chair of the police commission, subject to approval of the commission. Each committee may elect a vice chair. The chair shall preside. Bernadette?
And is this a change because this is how the other boards and commissions do it? Because historically, haven't we had each committee elect their own chair and vice chair?
Yeah.
I don't like necessarily going along with the other boards and commissions on this one.
Yeah, and we did that last week. I got roped into it.
My recollection is you volunteered. And that's what I'm sticking with.
That's because no one else wanted it.
How
We
we
have
usually
Caitlin and then Jesse.
Okay, my proposed change is each committee may elect a chair and vice chair, subject to approval of the committee.
May or shall?
I meant committee.
May or shall?
Shall.
Thank you.
Do I need to read that again?
Yeah.
Okay. Each committee shall elect a vice chair and chair of the committee, subject to the approval of the committee.
Well, then,
The committee or the commission?
They've already elected them.
Perfect.
So each committee shall elect a chair and vice chair of the committee.
Perfect.
Not subject to the approval of the commission.
She was saying committee, not commission.
Yeah.
Right, and I'm just clarifying, we're either way. I mean, well, obviously not of the committee because they're voting it. It's not subject to the commission.
Jesse?
I'd support that. It's consistent with the change we made, or the change that we did not adopt in Article 4, Section 4.
I have myself in the queue. This is the way the practice has gone, the way that Caitlin has stated it, and I'm a little bit uncomfortable having the chair appoint committee chairs. I think that I'm more comfortable having each committee elect their own chair and vice chair, so I like that. Okay, is there any disagreement with Caitlin's proposed wording on this section?
No.
Okay, then that's accepted by acclamation. Okay. And then last, but not least, item 6 on the page is, at the end, we've had a suggestion to add the sentence, each committee should be reviewed annually by the commission to determine whether a continuation of the committee is warranted. Any discussion on that, Caitlin?
How do you create action on that? Like, if you decide it's not warranted, what do you do?
Let's get into the work plan for the manager.
Okay.
When we have our annual retreat,
So some people feel like it is warranted, but others don't. Like,
probably a vote.
okay. Is that in here?
Everything's by majority, so our work plan can only be accepted by majority. Anybody else on that section? Okay.
So yeah, I don't have a problem with it. So this basically says that the committees sunset every year unless we extend them.
Which has been true in practice already. Because we work on our work plan. Bob?
I move acceptance of the bylaws as amended.
Second. Discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no.
I abstain because I didn't review them.
Okay.
Linda snuck in, I didn't.
You don't
Hi,
have to,
Linda.
you don't have to. Okay, back to you.
Okay. Does everyone want a break?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Break.
Marathon?
So you made it in time for the break.
I was still waiting for the break out there. I was sat there and I thought, aren't they going to break at 7? And then no one came out.
This doesn't come in.
It ain't 7 o'clock.
No. I went to push stop and it was like, I didn't start, but I looked at him and it wasn't my responsibility to hear the discussion. Oh, yeah.
Oh, look. It wasn't anything on here.
Yeah, but that one is still
Fortunately,
on.
that's-
Still on, and we're still in a public meeting, even though we're on break.
Oh,
See, and it's a
so
good-
it looks a little
It's a good thing we have it.
if we stop the tape, because people will say,
Oh, you just have to be careful about what you say and know the camera's on.
true. You know Steve McIntyre.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Okay, so,
Quite a few years.
at the CRB, the police review, that's like, so, so,
Don't tell
I
them.
think you have done better things. What happens when they're sitting there, they'll do things wrong. You know, and the officers are stressed. You're lighting the customer say, I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have done that, whether you were sitting there or not, And if I get it, then they just get away with it. You're going to have to get rid of it. They might. So I still walk across outside. I might be able to, not very much. She's just a bad. She's still sitting there. I was sitting next to him, it's out back motorcycle, sitting there, and sat there 3 seconds. Did the trip.
Hi, how are you? Pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm like, you're probably with him. Didn't the trip? That was, everybody was like, and I'm like, oh, you all wanted to say it. So, once again, the difference between a CRB meeting and a police commission meeting, although this was pretty close to a CRB meeting.
Yeah, so I was right. I would love to have been there to hear that line. I should have been to that meeting.
I apologized afterwards. Okay, Steve, I hope I didn't hurt your feelings. He's like, yeah, it takes a lot for that.
Go to
Yeah, that's right.
He just looked at my, then I had to go home and say to my husband, honey, my filter wasn't working.
I'll bet it was shocked too, wasn't it?
What are you looking at?
Well, I had a note on the game summit. I know. Give them my name. Give them my name. You have anything?
No, I haven't.
You steal my stuff.
I haven't yet, but I can work on it.
Okay, you sure?
Well, no. Let me say that.
Was that? Crime scene on River Road? Oh, yeah.
The bird.
I was there for 2 days. I wonder what's going on. I'm guessing there's
Somebody heard that in here.
One of the neighbors saying that.
Hey, Carter, I bet this is yours.
All the time, there's a guy and 2 kids.
I couldn't figure out why, I was going, where the heck did this come from?
Another packet?
Yes,
I just need an email.
there's an email there.
That's what I need.
I couldn't figure out where it came from, it was in my stuff, I was like, oh.
No, it was on radio where I said.
Oh, I did steal it.
Wow.
Wow. You know, I just kind of figured
You have summer of 9? No.
So my son, freshman,
Growing up in there.
no, junior.
Who lived there with the mom and stepdad?
Was
Male and
his stepdad. Yeah. Our oldest son was
make sure they cross the T's and dot the I's and everything's fine.
It's like a big obstacle course.
No, that's what today, I didn't get anything on email.
They have a big rock in the middle of town. There's a big rock. Everybody competes so much so that right now it's the big rock. It's a garbage can.
Your facility up
Clean
there?
it, like,
There's a facility up
and then
there?
cover it over with their
For the jail? Oh my gosh.
So I'll put the colors of my crab or your crab, and we go over in the city, and they triangle in the middle of the street. Put these little ROTC boys in the middle of the night.
CCC down below.
My son.
Oh,
Drowning.
they drowned him.
Oh, I never-
And then took a picture of it, so before it got taken.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm sure today. Dormitory.
When somebody's on like that. Somebody's go down and they have to go for 45 minutes or something.
Need someone to put on it, they put they go out for it and come back.
So they're very conscious now, so they can.
I would have been happy with those. What he's doing.
I don't know if anybody accesses it.
Well,
I'm not sure how many people are.
Nobody does.
I don't think
How are you, Linda? Sure.
I'm pretty good. How about you?
Or any of our city council.
Spring's obviously had taken, not ours, but another one.
On the other hand, just a point about, like, I was thinking when you said that about the camera, about the video clips, I was thinking, oh, no, that would be like one of those things you see on like YouTube where they like from every meeting, one person in the room making say, I, you know, like whatever, and making it, show them rolling their eyes or whatever over and over. And I'm thinking, make sure I don't roll my eyes in the meeting.
You put it back to the camera anyway.
I know, but, you know, that's a good point, Jesse. You know, because they could make clips out of whatever they wanted and post whatever they wanted. I mean, you know.
Hopefully nobody cares enough.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. Well, might do, I don't know. Might do it for fun. So warm, I just
I'm glad it's over.
So then I realized that
The audio tape from the outreach meeting, is that available? The audio file?
I don't work
In the game.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know how to transfer that.
Oh,
It's on my computer.
it is, and that's your computer?
That's my computer. No,
you know, but he's.
no, it's not.
But, yes, it's available.
Okay?
They just don't know quite how to get it together.
Oh.
If you know, I'm happy to look at it.
Yes, that's something I can do. That's in my technology.
By the way, Linda, you have a nice binder there.
From your,
You got it from the right place.
yep, from your, yep, I had a meeting there, and the gentleman came in and gave us all one.
I meant to mention that to you the other night when you're sitting next to me.
First time I ever had one, I carry it everywhere.
Far enough away. Good thing.
I'm ready.
I know you didn't say anything about your forum.
That's fine, it's a meeting. That's fine, I'll say it.
Okay, I just
Yeah,
wanted
that's,
to
no,
check,
I will.
because I didn't check in with you. That was bad.
Oh, no, it's fine. No, you know me, I'll call you if there's something I need. The meaty Bob, yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw your boss at the volleyball game the other night. Huh? He sits down close to the floor, so.
No, you'll never see
He was on the other side, I'm pretty sure that's him. Six o'clock was Friday. But then it goes
That's funny.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Is that Jason? Somebody else did it?
Doesn't even look the same, huh? What?
Somebody else who did it? After or after
Before, obviously.
He might have been smarter after, I don't know.
But he's still married to Jason.
Yeah, that's your fault. You didn't answer my email. I emailed Worth's email last night after Bonnie said that second home run. Was he watching the baseball game at all? I know he's a big Baltimore fan.
Jason doesn't want to.
No, that's what I'm saying. He's a big Baltimore fan.
He is, but he never watches. He's too busy reading.
Nobody's in the playoffs.
He's too busy reading. But this is what he does. He watches sports and he watches like the stats, but he doesn't watch the game. He only cares about the stats.
Bruce Banner.
How's it feeling? Pretty good. Yeah, how about you? I'm good.
Good.
I'm ready for the weekend.
Me too. Mine started tonight.
Yeah. Okay, we get back to it. So the next thing on our agenda is the game symposium update.
This will be green.
Okay, great.
Just wanted to give you an update. The game symposium originally was scheduled to be held in October, and it's not being held in October. You haven't heard anything about it because it's being pushed to February 8th and 9th. Friday and Saturday at LCC Center for Meeting and Learning
Is that downtown or on campus?
on campus.
Do you know if they still have Ms. Schaefer from the city that's facilitating it?
Ms. Schaefer and Sandy Schaefer and Greg Rickoff are the two co-chairs right now. And there's an outreach group that's working on getting folks engaged, and they are pulling together stakeholder lists, both in terms of getting people involved in the planning, as well as making sure that invitations go out for the event itself.
You know who those stakeholders are?
Carmen Urbina is the chair of that outreach group, and I can send it out to you. I will send it out. Seating is going to be limited. Will seat 380 people, and so we're going to have online registration through LCC. We'll take care of all of that.
Is there a fee with it?
There is a fee for the whole event, but it includes the registration part.
Oh, so it's really changed the whole...
No, there's no fee for the event, for coming to the event. There's a fee for us to use LCC, and it includes the registration part. So it's still a free event for people to come.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, misunderstood.
I thought it was
And it's being paid then out of,
City of Eugene and Big Brother.
EPD is paying for it.
as part of their,
It's a grant.
It's
$20,000 grant they have.
25.
25 and half Big Brother, Big Sister, and half theirs?
Nope, right now, there's no other money in, as my understanding. It's $25,000 in that EPD is committed to this.
and, I mean, I guess I'm trying to figure out what kind of budget, what do they, I mean, like the Citizens Police Academy and Safety Town fall under,
This came out of the
Kind of
Office
cheap.
of the Chief. And I think part of it came out of savings from downtown, I don't remember what. And some of it was possibly, I don't know. I don't know where the money came from.
okay, but it's not considered part of that kind of education outreach like they do with the
No.
Police Academy and the,
Correct.
okay, this is just something that,
This is the chief acknowledging there was an issue and saying, I need to have the community get together.
Okay.
There is also a public information group that is working. It's led by Melinda McLaughlin from the Eugene Police Department. Has convened all of the regional PIOs, public information officers, and they've got three primary goals. One is to let everybody know about the event. Two is to work with the media to get the graphics better. The goals of the forum itself are to understand what the issues are in the community, to learn what other communities are doing, and customize that for Lane County, and to build the foundation to make a community-based plan to move forward to address the problems. In addition to those three, the other one was to address stereotypes in the community about gangs and gang members. And so one of the key strategies in that is working with the media, who continually perpetuate Hollywood stereotypes of what gang members look like. So the media folks are taking that seriously and are trying to figure out how to get the media outlets to use different stock footage, because what they have is old Hollywood stereotypical stock footage. So an intentional effort to try to correct that is being made. And then also one of the other goals is to get general information out into the community about gangs and the symposium. They will struggle a little bit because the seating is limited, so you've got to be careful to do public information in a way that doesn't create expectations about attendance that then you can't meet because you only have seating for 380 people.
How many, 300?
380.
Well, they don't have to worry. They won't get 380 there.
There have been conversations about how do you engage, what's the role, and how do you engage people who have been in gangs. And there has been a great deal of interest from some community members. The challenge is trying to figure out what former gang members are also currently involved, to the point where there might be active investigations. So everybody's avoiding the people who might have active investigations. And I believe that they are working very closely with Mr. Salpatu, who I think is going to be a keynote and is also involved in the planning, who was gang affiliated, and his family was as well. And his family's been involved in gang intervention stuff in the region before. So,
Do we know what the budget is? I mean, is that available for public information? To
The
know
budget?
what they anticipate this is going to cost to do?
They got
Well, we have
$25,000,
so
I
it's
think
gonna be less
somebody
than
needs
that.
to oversee how that's spent.
Right. So I don't think that they have figured out how they're planning on spending it. We're nailing down parts, like we just nailed down the LCC cost, so.
Okay.
They'll start with 25,000 and pay for what needs to be paid for, and I'll let you know when I know more.
Open bar, I think.
Of ice water.
You said it's Friday, Saturday?
Friday, Saturday.
Bring your
During
own
the
cup.
day, evening?
Friday all day, Saturday part day.
Oh,
Any other questions or comments?
thank you, Carter.
I think that's good that the chief is doing that. We have some gains here. I don't think it is bad as other places. My frustration with giving $25 to do that, $25,000 to do that. I mean, when they first started this, they was focused on Latino and African American gangs, but of course it's more than just Latino and African American gangs. And he wanted the community to help him. I don't think we need to pay our community to come and give some time to do this. And the main key people there are always the ones at the table, and they don't want to do anything unless they're money. You ask them where they're volunteering in the community, like all of us sitting around this table, they're not volunteering anywhere. And we need the community to learn how to volunteer and give back and help when the police department or anybody needs help, because this community is our next generation, it's our community. And we're hurting for money. I'm sure that $25,000 could go to something else.
And lastly, I forgot to mention, there was a request from the commission to consider hate crimes and supremacist issues in with this. The committee discussed it. There are some very significant differences in the motivations for people who get involved in gangs, who get involved in supremacist versus criminal street gangs. So the discussion went back and forth, and where they ended up landing is the focus of this symposium is going to be the impact on youth and all the people who impact youth. And the truth is, supremacist gangs impact youth, and so it is going to be included. And we're still trying to figure out how to do that in a way that still allows the symposium to talk about gangs collectively without splintering the community, because it's an incredibly sensitive topic. And even in the work group, it's difficult to get through a meeting without fractionalized conversations about race, and to try to figure out how to construct a community conversation that keeps us moving forward is challenging, and I think the group is up to the challenge. But it is included because it would be an omission, a blatant omission to assume that to not include it because it's hard. So to let you know that the hate crime issue is going to be included in the symposium. That was the last piece.
When you say hate crimes, are you limiting it to the
Supremacist.
So not any gay, lesbian hate crime stuff?
To the extent that it's gang-related, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Anything else?
I'm done.
Okay, now on to committee updates. Bob, do you want to go first?
Sure, that's fine. Yeah, the PSRC met last Tuesday, and we were not able to raise a quorum, unfortunately. We only had 3 members, but so we didn't do anything official. And I know this is difficult, and, this weather has been great. I'm looking forward to November's meeting, so that when it's raining, people will come to the committee meeting. So hopefully, this is a one-time issue, but we had the problem with not publishing the previous meeting and then not having a quorum for this one, so work is backing up, is what I'm pointing out. And so we have issues that need to be voted on that we can't vote on. We have several policies in line now that I think are ready, but we need to vote on them and do that. But prior to that, we did approve and would recommend approving the policy 316, emergency response to calls that had been brought to the committee on the last committee meeting, and then again on this one here. And the committee has questioned staff thoroughly on it, I think, to their satisfaction, and gotten the answers they wanted about the issues involved in the policy. So it's the committee's recommendation that the commission approve the policy as presented to you tonight. And I'll make that motion.
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Jim?
In your discussions, I know there's references here to the ORSs and the OARs. Was there any discussion to maybe eliminate the specific reference numbers? Because this is something that we've struggled with when we're doing policies and procedures at work. If you start referencing a specific one and then things change or things get added to it, it doesn't always make it back in, because then you have to go back through all your policies and procedures and update every place those things are located. So my suggestion was to just leave off the specific numbers, but say pursuant to ORS or OAR, instead of just having the specific references to them, because otherwise you're going to end up having to go back, like I said, whenever anything's added, changed, deleted, you have to go back and find all that through all the policies and procedures. That was just something that I thought of, something that, like I said, we struggle with that at work too. So we try to eliminate a lot of those kind of things so you don't have to go back. You're still referring to the regulations that you're going to follow those policies and procedures, but you don't specify exactly which ones, so that as they change, you don't have to change everything.
Chairman?
I hear what you're saying, Jim. I think that it was my understanding when this was discussed, or from previous discussions with our police department representatives that help us in these meetings, that it's helpful for them to have the reference so they can look it up if they want. And I had thought at one time they had told us that the officers even carry the ORS with them, or some version of the ORS with them, so that they can look up a reference if they need to. Is that correct?
They do, yes, they have pocket versions.
Thanks.
Bob?
I think that's it. I mean, I was just going to say there are specific points in 820.320 that address directly these issues that they refer to, and I think it's precise. It's very specific about when and where they can use their emergency equipment and so forth. And I'd hate to not be able to look to that, and hopefully somebody, it's a big police operations manual, but hopefully somebody does this when changes are made and the department staff goes through it and says, we need to amend this section, or,
And I think one of the differences might be from banking is that if there's a case law that comes down that's related to an ORS or an OAR, it's going to be easier for the department to search based on the OAR or the ORS and say, it's changed, are we compliant with it? How does it need to change? Or, case law has said you have to do something different. I think it will alert them. And if it's not, it would be harder for them to cross-reference, I think, and to pull things up afterwards. So I get what you're saying, and I can see where that might be a concern. I think with the organizations that they use in Lexipol to get these things before them, they're getting updates. And so if there's a case that comes down out of the Ninth Circuit that says, you have to change how you use your code 3 lights and sirens, it's going to be a lot easier for them they're going to get notice of it, and it's going to be easier for them to find it and change it as necessary.
And where it kind of comes from is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is completely changing. They're all taking the regs that used to be like Reg E, Reg Z, and everything. They're completely renumbering all of them. So everybody that has references in any of their policies and procedures to any of those regs have to go through everything and change all those references. So That's where I was kind of
Sure.
from there. 'Cause- And Oregon could certainly do that, and then you'd have to go through everything and redoing it. But I can certainly see the advantages to having the specific references there for the officers to go straight to those places, so.
On another issue, with regards to, I'm sorry, I wasn't at the committee meeting, and bad weather, I'll do my best to be there. When you said the other ones didn't come because they hadn't been voted on, is it part, I mean, I didn't see any in the bylaws that it's required to be voted on in committee to come to the full commission, but that's kind of what it's, it's what it's always been, and obviously with only 3 people there to discuss it, you might not feel comfortable bringing it to full commission, but is that correct, that the committee doesn't have to vote on it? They can vote it, they can vote it out, but not necessarily vote it up or down, or?
They can't vote.
Well, no, if there's not a quorum and there's not public notice, yeah, they can't take a vote, but I guess
The members of the committee can forward something for the commission's consideration.
Correct.
The
Okay.
committee can't.
Correct.
So can the committee, if there's not a quorum, can they forward something?
There's no committee without a quorum. It's not a...
It's just a couple of
Just
guys
a
sitting around talking.
informal discussion.
An informal discussion, but it has to be, but it was publicly noticed.
It was.
Because there's enough people there that you can't talk amongst yourselves. Got it. Okay. I think I understand that.
Any other discussion?
Yeah. Just, it was useful to the extent that we made known to Lieutenant Reynolds, who's now taking over for Lieutenant Feldman, as was mentioned last time, and we're able to bring our concerns about the policies to him so that he can address those at the next meeting when we do have a quorum and take consideration of them. So that part of it still worked. Thank you.
He gets a nice, slow, easy in.
Exactly.
So we're voting on this? Oh, we're still discussing.
Oh, I just wanted to say that, this when this was in the committee, there wasn't a whole lot here. This is pretty cut and dried. This policy is not unlike some of the ones that are going to be coming up. There's going to be a lot more questions. There were a lot more questions in committee. This one's pretty cut and dried, and I think it's a great improvement over the current policy. It's more clearly stated, and the way that it's written is more brief than the current policy, so it makes it more clear and concise about what officers can and can't do. Thanks.
Any other discussion? Okay, if not, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of adopting the new language, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, passes. Is that all of your update, Bob?
That's my report. Thank you.
Okay, great. Joe?
Okay, well, let's see, I guess he talked about leadership and wound up with myself as the chair and Ms. Miller as our vice chair. And then we went on and talked about the work plan. I guess we have the first, there's an outstanding issue with trying to do a survey to the police union. So the first issue is to contact the police union and then move on with that. The second is the U of O student forum, and then the third would be the state of public safety forum, and in order of priority. There was a suggestion to attempt to increase outreach, and so I have these little things, which, in the interest of not killing as many trees, it was suggested, or I suggested, that we actually put a notice in the calendar section at the Weekly and the Register Guard, potentially other places like on the university campus, those kinds of things. And so this is a suggested wording for that, and if we can get an approval on this, then we can actually put it in for this coming month. So I didn't want to do it independently. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Are you done, Joe?
That's, well, for the moment, but we'll do this one and then move on. But yeah, go ahead.
I had a question. So I thought, my recollection was that in the committee, we talked about using the same language that's used for the public notice in the register guard. I don't remember what the register guard notice says. Does this say the same thing?
It's similar. The thing that Carter sent me was actually for the policy committee. And the first part about Police Commission Policy Committee, 530 Singer Room, Eugene Public Library, is the same. The second line is different, which is more of, and I'm proposing this as more, the one on the Police Commission, I don't have or for the Policy Committee, talked about, what was this, it was sort of a current agenda item. It had an agenda item. And I thought that something for the public that was kind of general and could be reused would be okay. So that's why I'm suggesting this language. If the committee likes it, move ahead. If not, please suggest something else.
Again, I wonder, I think one of the things I now learned after dealing with Carter on this issue and getting the agenda ready for the next committee meeting is, I think the notice, the public notice, has to state what items are on the agenda. So specifically stating what you're bringing up at the next meeting is what brings people who are concerned about what you're going to talk about to the meeting to speak out against it or about it or in favor of it, whatever the choice. So I think we need to, focus on what the items on the agenda are going to be. I think it's implicit that if you don't like a policy that's being brought up by the committee, that you would be there to speak against it, or if you support it, that you would be there to speak for it. So I really don't see need for that particular language. The main thing is to get the point across as to what we're going to bring up at the committee meeting, and that would be my suggestion.
Chairman?
So Carter, what are the requirements of the public notice? Are we required to listen?
We're going to continue to meet the public requirement notices and send the public notice to the city manager's office that includes the agenda topics and the meeting date. I think this is in addition to that.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I wanted to thank Joe for agreeing not only to be the chair of this committee, but also for agreeing to do this extra piece of taking this to the Eugene Weekly. So my only thing is, I'm one of these people that's always like, do you put the positive first or the negative first? And so for me to say an opportunity to voice criticism, putting that first automatically puts a negative spin on it. And I know the audience is the weekly, and maybe that's different than maybe the audience that it would be in a different publication. But I don't like having the word criticism first, just because, that's certainly part of feedback, but that's not the whole part about feedback. So,
how about reverse the suggestions, commendations, criticism in that order?
Sure, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, works for me.
Jesse?
No, if that works for everybody, then I have nothing to say.
Bernadette?
Well, it doesn't work for me. I mean, completely. Well, I mean, my concern is that you've got the CRB that's supposed to be taking complaints against the police department, and so I'm concerned. One of the problems that we've always been trying to address on the CRB is people not feeling like they have to go from the police department to make a complaint to the police auditor's office to make a complaint to, the Human Rights Commission wanted to get involved, so people felt like, they had not an advocate, but a friend there. And we don't want to get into a situation where somebody shows up at a meeting thinking this is the place that they get to make their complaint against the police department. And so my concern with putting the word criticism in there, I have no problem with people being critical of the police in any way, shape, or form, because I think that's what makes police officers better. My concern is that it could lead to frustration, that people think that they have made a complaint against the police department, but they haven't. And who's going to be the person that's going to take that and make sure that that person, gets the right information, gets to the right place, the information gets to the right place, I mean, we already don't have staff, taking notes, and now, that's my concern. But I like the idea of it.
Myself and Eugene and Chairman. What if we just took out and between police and policies and just said police policies? Tamara?
Is there, Bernadette's point about the CRB and not having a staff person there is important, and I'd like to think that all of us would understand what the police complaint process is in any of our meetings, including our committee meetings. Is there like a card that the auditor has that we could get a little stack of, that we could, like, if somebody had a complaint, we could hand them a card? Because that's a really important point. Okay, maybe we should get some of those and just have them as part of our materials, so if somebody does come, that we, that we make sure we have the correct information to hand them at the meeting so that they get to the right place.
Or we'll have Leah come to all of our meetings.
Yeah.
Well, they're out of town in the next
Yeah.
few weeks, so they would be here.
Thank you.
Yeah, the thought on this is, if someone comes with a complaint, or again, a commendation, both of those would be sent to the auditor. And my thinking is, if they come to the meeting, then part of the discussion immediately after is to say, hand them the material as you suggested, and say, okay, we've noted this, but there are other places to go do this, and here are the materials and where to go to do that. So I think that it helps with the communication to the community. The other thing is that our notices are only in limited space at this point, and the thought is to make it a little bit more inviting to the community. So if you make a general invite, you're going to wind up with some people who have a complaint, some people, who want to see something different. So the question is, how do you welcome them into this system and maybe direct them to the correct place? So my thinking is, if we're not doing other kinds of outreach, this might be a good opportunity to do this.
Bob?
Only one thought comes to mind, and I'm fine with the way it's worded here. I think that my wife had done some work with a volunteer group and had to send out publicity notices on the group's performances and such, and I think I remember they'll only do a certain amount they have a format, in other words, that they use in the community calendar, and basically they say when it's going to be, where it's going to be, and what the topic is, and that's it. They may, I don't know, has anybody checked with the registered guard whether they would allow extraneous wording in their policy. I don't know, maybe that needs to happen before we can.
Weekly.
This isn't for the guard.
Oh, I thought you said in the community calendar.
Well, there is
We're going to continue to do that, what we've always done.
So where's this going? I'm sorry.
Weekly.
Eugene Weekly.
Oh, the weekly.
And potentially the U of O paper.
Oh,
There's the
I don't have any
Emerald.
problem with that. They don't have any problem with it, I don't, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, Jesse?
I can throw out two wording ideas: an opportunity to provide feedback about, or an opportunity to discuss police and policies.
Okay.
I have Linda and then Joe. I would encourage if someone has wording to make a motion. Linda?
I was just wondering if Eugene Weekly had agreed to publish it.
It would go in the calendar section. They just put anything you give them in the calendar. I mean, I put stuff in there all the time.
Okay.
Yeah. This is something that looks exactly like this is what they look for.
Okay.
And let's see, on Jesse's thing, we did have a brief discussion at the meeting where we did bring up the concept of discuss, because part of the issue is that we have a section at the beginning for public comment and a section at the end for sort of a public conversation, but we're not inviting them to sit at the table. So I'm not sure that the word discuss works, and we did hit on that a little bit just briefly at the meeting.
I didn't understand the last part of that, because the agenda usually says public dialogue, which implies people talking back and forth, not just somebody speaking to us. So at the end of the meeting, there is a community dialogue between the commissioners and the people. So you are discussing it, because there's a response. In my committee anyway, we respond to remarks by the people who come at the end of the meeting and sit in for community dialogue. So I hope we're doing that right. And are we, Arthur? Is that?
That is still on the agenda.
Okay.
But I was speaking about that section in the middle where people are not welcome at the table. In other words, they're welcome at the beginning, one-on-one, one by one, and they're welcome at the end in the dialogue, but not during the entire meeting. So the implication of a discussion is you get to sit around with the commissioners and discuss it. And that was, like I say, that was brought up at the group, and that point was made, so. Not that you, yeah.
So at this point in time, does anyone have a motion for what we're going to place in the Eugene Weekly? This could be anyone. I don't know. Like Joe.
How about I'll make the motion to, with the change, to in the order of the words. I'm sort of mixed about, I would prefer police and policies, but I'm willing to just say police policies. Can I get a sense of how strong people are about police policies versus police and policies?
No.
Can't get it?
No, you can't stop her.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we'll go with what's on the paper, reversing the order of the 3 items and leaving the word "and" in. I move.
Can you read that out loud for us?
Okay.
How you'd like it.
Police Commission Outreach Committee, 5:30 p.m., Singer Room, Eugene Public Library. An opportunity to voice suggestions, commendations, and criticism about our police and policies.
I don't like police and policy.
I'll make a friendly amendment to take out the
Well,
word
it's cool.
"and."
Okay?
Point of order, we
yeah,
don't have a
thank
second
you.
for the motion.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'll second.
Okay. So,
So I'll move a friendly amendment to take out the word "and."
and I'll accept your friendly amendment.
Okay.
The last "and." Not
I got it.
Yeah.
But there are a couple "ands" in there, so.
Does anyone have any other things they'd like to say about this before we move to vote? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of the currently phrased notice of our Police Commission Outreach Committee being placed in the Eugene Weekly, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, that's approved.
Okay.
Thank you. Joe, the rest of your update?
Let's see. Oh, yes. I'm supposed to, let's see. Okay, I guess I'm supposed to make an email to, and I'm not even sure exactly what this is about, to Chief Kearns on his suggestion of who should attend the Public Safety Forum. So I will send that out, but I guess I wanted to review the tape before I actually worded my letter or my email. Let's see, and then the other item that was significant is Mr. Manning has resigned, which now leaves us 2 vacancies on the committee. And I think other than that, I've covered it.
Okay, Jim?
I wanted to go back to when you made the motion, or when you reread the motion, you said Eugene Weekly, and you left it at Eugene Weekly. We were talking about also putting it into the U of O newspaper.
That's gone.
Is that, the enroll's gone?
That's what they said in the paper last week.
It's
Only
now
gonna do it
magazine,
online?
and it's online. They print
Yeah.
like once every 4 days. And they'll charge you, so it's
Okay.
not.
So it is just Eugene. Okay, that's what I want to make sure. I didn't want to limit this just Eugene Weekly if there were other periodicals or other.
Yeah, it costs money to.
Okay.
them.
Oh, I didn't know, well,
There's just-
maybe I will do it for free as a public announcement, but we can check there.
Yeah, definitely check
So
there.
is there any objection to going there? And also, I'm aware of the Vagabond, which is the homeless newspaper, but I'm not aware at the moment of any other periodicals, but I thought that if I did find them, that it would be good to put it into it. Any objections to seeking other places to publicize?
Bernadette?
I guess I thought the motion was just with regards to the notice, where the notice goes out. I mean, I think I understood it to go on any community calendar, so, I mean, I don't,
I think that's what it originally was, but when she reread it, she specifically said Eugene Weekly.
Okay.
That was my concern.
because
didn't want to
I'm
just
thinking of the
that.
community calendars that run on the TV from time to time, too. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm fine with it going on any community calendar. That's what I thought we were voting on, but because I wasn't listening probably very well.
Should I make, can I make an amendment to remove the words from,
Move that it goes to everywhere.
I move that the notice is allowable to go on any, I'm sorry,
Free.
Community calendar.
any free community calendar. Yes.
Are there any objections? Okay, then it passes.
Do we need a second?
No, unanimous consent.
Okay.
So, Okay, that's what I had. Thank you. I actually have an update. I have a meeting with the University Community Relations administrators at UVO and the Dean of Students to discuss details about the forum on campus. So hopefully we'll get a date and, I mean, not a date, they're going to give me a list of suggested areas that we could use on campus and just give any feedback they have at the time at the general thought of it. They know we have nothing planned so far. Because I said I would come back next outreach meeting with some progress. So, and then secondly, during the, I'll say that. That's it. Okay.
Is someone notifying the University of Oregon Police Department?
If we want them involved, they will be notified.
And if you don't want them involved, they won't be notified? This is on campus, right?
They will not be notified if they're, I mean, someone will tell them if, it's like, as of right now, they're not invited.
No. But this is on campus?
Yes.
I think that would be very disrespectful. But if they're not notified, that's just my opinion. Because they are new and they can learn probably a little bit too. I have to finish it. I don't know.
Tamara?
The details haven't, this is just the very first step.
Okay.
None of the details have been like discussed or nailed down, so that's a good suggestion.
Okay. Any other comments on Joe's update? Okay. Moving on to special host update. Carter, are you giving that? Yeah. Okay.
Yesterday, the city council met and reviewed an updated social host ordinance. You all reviewed it last spring. As a result of comments that came from the commission, from meetings with the community, with students, with property owners, with internal staff, there were 3 significant concerns raised and changes made to the ordinance. Excuse me. The first was that the fee structure was too punitive in total. It originally had a $500 first offense, and I'm sorry, back up. This is a proposal that would hold party throwers and hosts responsible and give them citations if they have an unruly gathering. An unruly gathering is 5 or more people with alcohol, where 2 or more of these list of basically party gone bad offenses happens. So alcohol, 5 or more people, and illegal activity. The people who throw the party, organize the party, host the party can be cited, and the original fee schedule was $500 for the first offense, $750 for the second, and $1,000 for the third and subsequent. And the reason that this ordinance is a best practice national is because in addition to the penalties for the party thrower, excuse me, there are also civil penalties in the amount of the response cost. So the cost of the police coming out and responding, or public works having to come, or EMTs, would also be assessed on the second and subsequent offenses for the party host, thrower, organizer, and on the 4th offense at the same address, it would be assessed against the property owner, which is where this is significantly different than anything we currently have on the books. Because there are some properties, there were actually 22 properties in the last calendar school year where we had 4 or more complaints at the same address in one school year time period.
And not a fraternity.
I thought it was going to be the next one.
Wow. So the ordinance calls out what are the offenses that are included in the list of bad things that people aren't allowed to do at parties, and a process for an appeal. If you got a citation and you wanted to appeal it, what would constitute good faith on the part of the property owner primarily. So now going back to the changes, there were a couple of issues that were concerns to the community, the students, the property owners. One was that fee structure was too high. Couple that with the fact that according to the municipal courts, they're the ones who set fees, not the police department and ordinance. So we ended up striking that whole section because when the municipal court sets the fee schedule, fine schedule. So right now, it basically says the maximum fine will not exceed $1,000, and, excuse me, the presiding judge was at yesterday's meeting and provided an explanation to the council, basically that said he would look at the totality of the fines that the people were getting, and if they were also getting a fine for noise or a minor in possession, he would take all that into account, and if it was their first offense, and subsequent offenses would be higher. But if it was a first offense, it would not likely be very high at all, because that's not the intent, is to ding people who accidentally have one party that gets out of control. 2 accidental, out-of-control parties at some point stops being an accident, was the way the judge sort of made it sound. So that was the first concern. The second concern was that there were offenses in the list that that made people nervous. So it included interfering with an officer as one of the 2 offenses, and the police appropriately noted that pretty much any time the police show up at a party, there's going to be an interference problem, and that shouldn't be one of the 2. So they struck that out and said there need to be 2 other problems. If there's an interference issue, let that be a third, but there have to be 2 pre-existing challenges. And the other concern was that we didn't want to accidentally sweep up the innocent student who was unaware that there was going to be a party, or was out of town, or was in their bedroom or at the library. And I think that has been addressed, because the definition specifically says that you have to be the host, organizer, or facilitator of the party in order to be cited, and that you have to know or reasonably should know that there is a party. So if somebody's out of town and was not involved in organizing it, they can't get cited by the definition of the way it is. The other thing that the ordinance changed is put in something called an affirmative defense, which codifies something that has been practiced but people wanted to see. Excuse me. That if a party thrower, it gets out of control and they realize that it's getting out of control, and they call the police upon seeing that there are illegal behaviors that's becoming an unruly gathering, that'll be considered an affirmative defense should they be cited. So if you call us to help us out, that'll be considered when the officers show up. The next scheduled action date for this is a public hearing date that was set on November 19th. And final action has been deferred until January because the original date conflicted with school finals week. So, and then at yesterday's meeting, the new concerns that were raised that we haven't figured out how to resolve is the count of when property owners get cited is 4 offenses in a 12-month period, and that's the same for whether it's a single-family home or a multi-family unit of 100. And it becomes difficult for a property owner to manage if they have 100 units. 4 can happen in 2 weekends, and it doesn't give them enough time to have any remedies. However, the impact on the neighbors is no less bad because it's 4 events in 100 units next door to you. So we're still trying to figure out how do you make it so that it is, because it's a livability issue. It came largely from the Office of Neighborhoods and concerns from the neighbors. So that is the outstanding issue yet to be fixed, and we will have a draft for public hearing for the 19th of November. And that is anything else that you wanted to add?
Josie?
Just wanted to know what time that public hearing is, if it's scheduled.
7:30. They're all
Yeah.
7:30. Mm-hmm.
Is that it, Josie? Okay. I'm next on the list. I have been very passionately advocating for this for a long time. I'm a partier, and I think some of us are too much for our community. So I just wanted to let you all know in air of being transparent. I wrote City Council and the mayor and let them know that we are having a forum, so if they would like us to think about using our forum as a feedback method, if this is a concern for students and it involves the police, then they should talk to us and we might be able to use that. So I did not say we would, but I said it may be an option.
Who's we were having fun?
Huh? The commission.
Okay.
You will. So, that's that. Bernadette?
I think you may have answered the question, Carter, but when you said 42 at the same address, that's not necessarily the same person, because we're talking about a 100-unit complex. You're saying that there were 4 at that address, but it could have been 4 different apartments.
Correct.
Okay.
The way that it's written, it's 4 at a single address in a 12-month period.
Okay. While I appreciate your going for this, my concern is that, sometimes it's like when neighborhoods want to control everything that goes on in their neighborhood, you choose to live in a neighborhood close to a university, you kind of have to expect some behaviors. Just like when you live in the Whitaker neighborhood, you kind of expect to hear trains. When you live out by Beltline, you expect to hear all the zapping that goes on from the overhead power lines, and you're going to get cancer and die. At least that's what somebody told me why they didn't move there. So I kind of have this thing about, that everything is just getting so controlled by, the neighborhood here, and my concern in the way the newspaper articles seem to be getting released each weekend about, Party Patrol was out and mentioning the number of U of O students specifically in the press release. It's like, I'm not sure why the U of O students are getting numbered, but not the LCC students or, the people that live within the neighborhood. And so I'm not saying that I'm necessarily against any of the social host ordinance, or for it. I certainly have not read enough of it to be one way or the other. I guess I'm just raising a concern that it feels like we're kind of taking a section of our community, those being the students, that are obviously very well loved by, the community that brings them in, and then we're telling them that, you're bad, and we're going to make things really, really hard on you if you don't, behave, even though we know you're college students and you're not going to behave. So I just kind of put that out there. I mean, I guess my concern just is because I just kind of have been getting tired of reading in the paper the Party Patrol notes that are just pointing out the U of O students so much, and given that they are kind of forming their own police department, I guess they are a police department now, and still going through those rules, I think bringing them into the mix of, how this is going to be enforced with the Party Patrol and then this new ordinance, I think there's a lot more things that are, and I know we're just kind of getting an update, but those are my thoughts, and that's
Just a couple of updates. The policy is effective everywhere, and there were 1,200 loud party. We had to guess on how to count this because we don't actually count loud party calls, but approximately 1,200 calls citywide. Of those, 580 came from an area that the Party Patrol routinely patrols. So there is 700 calls that happen outside of the city, outside of the university area. The university has been very involved in this process, and it is one of many tools that they're looking to. And one of the very interesting conversations that took place yesterday was a whole conversation that Judge Allen brought up about needing basically a student code of conduct off campus, which doesn't exist right now. So conversations are taking place about the university's involvement in conduct of the students, and I've seen emails just today about those conversations are continuing. The reason that the university numbers are included is because we have always published the number of Party Patrol citations that we issue and calls that we go on, and perennially are challenged by the university that they are not college students at the University of Oregon.
Okay.
So it is answering a question that they asked.
Yeah, they're asking actually for that. It's kind of odd, but before it would be like a story come out saying like 1,000 students got tickets, and they're like, we know that 1,000 of those aren't U of O students, so tell us how much they really are.
Okay. Well, that answers the question that I can take back to the person that was complaining to me.
Tamara?
It sounds like the group that's working on that's been very thoughtful. A lot of the things that you said, Carter, that have been addressed are issues that it sounds like are, common sense to raise, and that they've been solved in a very thoughtful way in the draft ordinance. So that sounds like a really good group working on that, and it's good, I think, that the wording about the fines was taken out, because judges do like to set the fines in their own courts, typically. So, I think it's been a very thoughtful ordinance. It sounds like it would be interesting to have that included as a topic in our U of O forum when we have that on campus. It'll obviously be after the fact, after the 19th of November, when we actually have that. So I'll be interested in hearing if the students know about it when they come to the forum and what they have to say about it then.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, moving on to closing comments. Anyone want to start? Oh, cool.
But there isn't anyone.
Okay, well, I'll just go first. Thanks, everyone, for a great meeting. Hope you have a good weekend.
Pass.
Well, I'd like to commend our chairperson for their wonderful job she did tonight. I'm pleased to have you as our chairperson, and I think you've done a great job. And again, I'd like to thank everybody who has given thoughtful deliberation to everything we do here is important to us and the community. And having been party to parties in my neighborhood at 2 in the morning, I can tell you when there's no wind blowing and it's quiet and you got your window open, there's no experience like being woken at 1 o'clock to karaoke singing off key with, it just is not, it's not fun. I'm becoming a curmudgeon in my old age, but it's not. So anyway.
You chose to live with Bob.
I'm in favor of that. Yeah, that's right, I did, didn't I?
I enjoy the comments from Sorry I was late tonight, but it's been a long day. So thanks for my chair and co-chair. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Caitlin. And with the University of Oregon Police Department now formed and them being on a 6-year plan to become a full-fledged police department, I think that this commission, I hope that this commission decides to take a role in the intergovernmental agreements that are going to allow the University of Oregon Police Department to operate outside of the campus. That's what the law that allows them to become a police department requires, is them to form intergovernmental agreements, and we seem like the right body for that discussion to take place.
I agree. I appreciate the tag team effort by the chair and the vice chair. It was nice to have the continuity, Tamara doing the bookends. Let's just call them the bookends. But no, because you had started the whole bylaws, it was nice to have the continuity. But Caitlin, you run a great meeting. I like the idea of the intergovernmental committee agreement. I know that they've been talking with Mark with regards to a civilian review board oversight, civilian oversight sort of model, how they're going to do that. So I know that they are very open to discussing, items with, the city and kind of figuring out, how to best be served and to serve sort of thing. Because I am taking on a new position with the CRB, there will be a transition at some point in time to a new person. Don't know who that will be yet because we've got people in kind of transition on the CRB. So Tim says it will not be him. So I'm sure Deb will be quite happy about that.
Caitlin will be too.
She
Won't be angry.
didn't know him.
I know she didn't. It was a great line, though.
So I think it might be George. I think George has come to one of the meetings before, and I think he's expressing an interest in it. But we'll just kind of have to wait and see and put it through committee. So our next meeting will be in November. In the meantime, we've got Mark will be giving a presentation at the NACO conference down in San Diego with regards to stuff. that he does. Huh? Officer-involved shootings. He says he's not going to say much because the other two people are much more entertaining than him, and I'm sure that will be true. And that's about it. See, if he comes to these meetings, he can defend himself, but he makes Leah come.
Well, we slammed Tim in.
I'm done, Joe. Go ahead.
Okay, so Caitlin rocks, and I did bring it up last month, but I guess Pete sends us these articles through Carter, and the one that I thought, I mean, certainly is an issue, that I thought was very good, was the thing about the homeless being able to get rid of their police record. In other words, things that were built off of status crimes. And we have quite a bit of that's going on in this community. And so the question is, how would we go about creating a policy to be able to do that kind of thing? The change in the public safety zone basically acknowledges that those kinds of crimes, like leaning against a building, which is criminal trespass too, and the jaywalking stuff, which has been, the data sort of indicates pretty strongly that it was selectively given. Sort of does build up these things that make it harder to get off the streets. And so how do we go about, as a community, creating a policy like the thing that's going on in Boston, like what was discussed in Pete's article, do that? And so I'm not sure how to do that, and I would like to get some guidance from other folks in this commission who have more experience, and see how we can get that kind of thing implemented. There's some good people out there who have been criminalized. There's a lot of people, it's always the 2x2 matrix, Are they homeless? No. Are they good guys? Are they bad guys? And there's some people in all four boxes. And I think we ought to be serving some of the people who are, homeless but good guys and have been caught up by the system, and give them an opportunity to deal with these issues. It's my piece.
I wanted to pick up something that the camera said a little earlier, about one of the few times that they have used the official letterhead was to send a letter to the University of Oregon about their uniforms. I know in going to the Duck game, I can't tell the difference. So obviously they didn't pay attention to your letter. But I have to get right up close and look at their shoulders to see if they're an actual police officer or if it is one of their security people. Well, and plus, I don't think they're carrying guns now, so that's another way if I can see if they're actually carrying a gun or not. But pretty soon that's going to change. I would maybe encourage that we do that again, because that is, unless through our intergovernmental policies or whatever, that they will become basically true.
They're changing to black. It was part of what I understand is there was an understanding with getting the okay through the legislature was that Senator Przansky would pick their colors, and so they've picked new colors for new uniforms.
So something is going to be changing then? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I understand. Okay. That's what I've been told, is that they have a different color uniform that will be black.
That would be nice, because right now I have black.
Midnight blue.
So some people view that as a good thing, that it looked like they were EPD officers, because it looked like we had a greater police force than what we had, and some people viewed that as a bad thing, because they could be confused with an officer, but they didn't have a gun. And so I don't know, but the university's not required to abide by anything that the police commission wants or even the EPD wants or needs, so they just sort of ignore it. We assume that over time it would change. So
I agree that they probably don't have to, but as a suggestion, it would certainly be nice to be able to tell the difference between a true EPD officer and somebody that is a security element, more than a true frontline officer. But they are changing, so.
That's what I was told.
And other than that, thank you, Caitlin. Well-run meeting, and I think we're actually getting out early, which I don't think has happened in the whole time I've been here.
That wasn't the truth. Kidding.
Just quickly, Joe mentioned that there are 2 vacancies on outreach, and it's really important to get that filled up because they've got a lot of work on their plate. So if any of you are interested in joining the outreach group. My understanding is that as of now, they're meeting monthly, so it is not the once every 3-day meeting schedule that we were holding last January. So if anyone's interested, the next meeting will be November, the first Thursday in November, which is the 1st, November 1st. So I encourage you to come or send Joe a note and let him know, because we really need to get that filled out, because we need folks to help put together that UO forum and the public safety forum and everything. That was all.
Actually, if anybody wants to do it,
Yeah.
we still haven't gavelled ourselves out of here yet.
Right.
So is there anyone who's interested in taking one of those positions?
Sleep on it?
We're in transition.
I wonder if we put it on the next agenda so so the other members can see that aren't here tonight, and maybe they'll want to talk.
Oh, I thought you were raising your hand because you were volunteering.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'm busy. I'm very busy.
Thanks for faking me out.
Just to let you know, Jesse asked for this via email, but I'm going to get a status update on where UO PD is and next steps and where it all, if we can give feedback and stuff like that. So I'll bring that to the next meeting, just so to say. Do you remember that conversation?
Not much.
Cool. Well, that's all on our agenda, so unless anyone objects, we're adjourned.
Sorry. I know that